Hi everyone, welcome to my YouTube channel. This is the Wicked Bee of the West YouTube channel, and my name is Stephanie Diana Eubank. I'm a doctoral candidate at Concordia University of Chicago, and I am a business instructor over at Stan State. So I was lucky enough to go with my fellow faculty members and the dean of the business department to Gallo Wineries for a summit to see how Gallo Wineries can help us provide some additional insight into what they're finding in their recruitment process of graduates and how we can better help our students and provide more in-depth knowledge with regards to what's actually happening in the field of operational management and supply chain management. It was actually really fascinating. We got to go there on the 29th of June, right before the 4th. So thanks again to the Gallo Winery team. I had a blast over there and you guys were just such a big help. And it was really interesting because during this summit, it was really fascinating to talk with these operational leaders within Gallo Winery and supply chain management, IT or OIT, and engineering management. And it was really fascinating because the topic came up about the fact that statistically speaking, women only apply for jobs where they meet 100% of all the qualifications and skills, where men tend to apply for jobs where they only meet 40 to 60% on average. And this is not an old statistic. This is a statistic that has been redone since 2014 and retested and found to continue to be the case. Now, there's a common thought that women predominantly in the workplace, especially those in leadership, suffer from specifically within their workplace, what is called imposter syndrome. And the best example of what imposter syndrome is that I've found was the scene in The Big Bang Theory in season 12 where Amy went off on the guys who were trying to steal her and Sheldon's theorem towards their Nobel. Now, whereas that's a great example of what imposter syndrome truly is, and I'm not trying to take away from the experience of some women who are actually dealing with imposter syndrome, there is room for argument and a lot of research to suggest what they're actually dealing with is not actually imposter syndrome. Let me explain. There is a wonderful article by the Harvard Business Review, and I will have that link in my blog in case you want to read it as well. In this article, it's specified from this one woman's perspective and her additional research within the business field that she was being gaslit and dealing with a very hostile work environment that was becoming very toxic. And she was also experiencing arguably both unconscious and conscious biases based on her ethnicity and her gender. And there is a lot of research to show that there's a lot of issues with that, especially for those of color and women, especially if you're in a predominantly male-dominated field. There's even research to suggest that once women become 50% or more of that traditionally male-dominated field, we see a mass exodus of men from that field. A great example would be obstetrician or OBGYNs. Traditionally, that was always a male-held field. And then once women started getting into that field of medicine and becoming statistically even with men, we saw a huge drop of men even applying to go into that field. So that is one great example. There's a number of them. This being said, the argument that is being researched at the moment, and that actually makes a lot of sense, is that what women are beating themselves up saying that they're dealing with imposter syndrome and trying to work on themselves with that, they're not actually dealing with imposter syndrome. What they actually may be dealing with is workplace PTSD. Now, workplace PTSD is defined as a form of PTSD that is caused by a toxic workplace. Um, Specifically, they are dealing with mental abuse, emotional abuse, physical, financial, sometimes sexual. And oftentimes, these abuses in hostile work environment are developed either knowingly or unknowingly by leadership because they're both destroying their organizational culture and creating a hostile work environment because they weren't trained how to lead. So they confuse fear with respect. And it's because the hiring practice of leadership isn't to hire someone who's a top performer, promote them to leadership, and train them how to lead, or have them take coursework to learn how to read, or hiring people who have already gotten a business degree in leadership. And I would also argue, on top of adding to all of this, when we do hire people who have the degrees in leadership, have the experience, leadership, especially at the academic level, and even in our media, our media as a whole, tend to focus predominantly on the leadership perspective and not followership. And this only gives us one side of the coin, as leadership and followership, or those in non-managerial roles, are often referred to academically as followers. We look at them in a negative light, and that is not okay. It is a symbiotic relationship in business, not a dictatorship. It just isn't, and it's not supposed to be. And this has been sociologically studied since the early 1900s. This being said, it is arguable that, especially when we factor in racism in the workplace, conscious and unconscious biases, gender bias as well, in the workplace, we may be seeing a lot of specialists who have so much experience because they get gaslit, they deal with bad culture. They are developing internal pains that are creating PTSD. And it's really causing an issue with their productivity and with their confidence, and that is not okay. There are a few ways to fix this. For one, you can restructure how you're training your leaders in your organization so that they understand that, especially in remote work, leadership is meant to be a supporting role, not an authoritative role, or not just an authoritative role. Also, and I see this in my research as well with regards to remote work and remote leadership focusing on followership, leaders tend to spend so much time, especially in the remote workplace, trying to catch people doing what they're not supposed to do, that they ignore all the people that are actually doing a good job. And this behavior lowers morale so significantly and kills their organizational culture. And it's because they're trying so hard to basically push an organizational culture that is meant for only in person, instead of evolving it to include remote, hybrid, and in person only. Organizational cultures are meant to evolve and change as work does. And with the future of work becoming remote and hybrid, we cannot afford to be ignoring how workplace culture is not being handled appropriately in both in-person and remote work post-COVID, and is creating a culture of employees that are less confident in their work and less confident in their research. This will create a downfall of our economy if we don't work to do something. So what I'm suggesting is more work and understanding of remote work and in-person work, and how they can blend and how they can better support each other, and work with leaders to be able to develop healthy leadership skills so that they can improve the workplace culture and help those employees be able to heal by leading as a good example of corporate leadership. I personally love the YouTuber Laura Whaley. I believe it's Loe Whaley as her tag name. She gives a great example of when you're dealing with workplace PTSD and the constant apologizing, the anxiousness that's being displayed, all the things that as a leader you see and go, that person's not confident. What you're really seeing is not that they're not confident in their work, but that somebody's been gaslighting and mistreating them as a leader. And she shows examples of both of leaders being bad about that and not respecting boundaries, but she also shows good corporate organizational culture where taking your breaks is emphasized, being sure to totally log off for the day when your day is done, making sure that you're respecting boundaries, both from the leadership perspective and the followership perspective. These are great things to encourage, and they really do help with the healing, not just for your individual workplace, but for the economy as a whole. If you want more ideas on how you can help your organizational culture, or you have questions on how you yourself can improve and help with that process as well, especially if you're wondering if you're suffering from workplace PTSD or in fact imposter syndrome, there are a number of different resources that are available. And for those in the corporate sector, I am able and available for consulting through my organization, Wicked Bee of the West Consulting. So like and subscribe, and for more content, again, feel free to ask questions. As always, remember, remote work, it's here to stay.